Good morning, conference. It is great to be here in wonderful Glasgow once again. I don't know about you, but I thought that was a pretty uplifting start to proceedings. Thank you to the members of our council who plotted to make that flash mob a reality. You're amazing. But I just wanted to start by mentioning Enid, my lovely patient who was the focus of my speech to you last year. Because so many of you have asked, I want to reassure you, Enid's doing fine. But I'm not going to spend the next 20 minutes or so talking about Enid or any other patient of mine. But by sharing her story with you last year, it did lead to some pretty amazing things happening. The whole social isolation and loneliness agenda is now firmly in the political and public conscience. We launched our RCGP action plan on tackling loneliness in all 4 nations. And I've been working with Tracy Crouch, the UK Government Minister for Loneliness. So thank you for embracing and working with the concept of GPs wanting to deliver truly person-centred care, Enid-shaped care. But today, I want to focus on technology, the contrast between the tech-savvy and the technophobe. In an era where we have a veritable tech tsunami raging around us. And as 2018 is the year of anniversaries, including the anniversary of our 70th of the NHS, I want to look ahead to the next 10 years and talk to you about our ongoing work around our future vision for general practice. So, technology and GPs. I'd like you to cast your minds back 20 years, just 20. In 1998, my husband and I bought our first modern home computer. We immediately connected to the internet and had an email address. But actually, we were ahead of the game. At that time, only one of our friends and our wide network of friends had a personal email address. Online banking didn't exist, our mobile phone was the size and weight of a brick, and Google and Microsoft Office were born that year. And a company called Amazon had started selling books from a shed in America. Now, I suspect history will record the last 2 decades as the communications revolution. The way we work, learn, live, play has been transformed since then. Now, I'm a patient woman. Some of you say I'm too patient at times, but I get really exasperated when I hear accusations that GPs are technophobic dinosaurs. What utter nonsense, complete codswallop. GPs aren't afraid of innovation or technology. We're bright, innovative, intelligent people who gladly embrace good, safe technology. We were the first part of the NHS to have computerized records, electronic prescribing to collect coded data and go paperlight and then paperless. And let's be honest, most of us do love a new gadget, some wearables, some tech, some new innovation. And I like to consider myself reasonably tech savvy, keep up with the latest ideas and innovations. But I faced a major tech challenge when my surgery merged this year. We merged with the other surgery that we already shared a health centre with. Similar patients, staff we know and like. On paper, it should have been the easiest form of merger, but it was hard. It was a horrible experience. Now, change is always hard, even wanted, planned for change. But you know the single thing that made it hardest? The IT. I won't name them, but our software provider refused to let us merge our web-based consulting system when we wanted to, and we were firmly given just 2 options for the dates we could go live. One 3 months later than we wanted, and one 4 months earlier. Delay would have meant missing the chance to bid for new funding to help us merge, and missing out on initiatives only available to practices of a certain size. So we rushed to get ready for the early one. We were forced to cut short the planning, the training, the networking, the building of relationships, all for the convenience of an IT provider. So we merged as winter pressures hit, as the quaff pressure built, and that IT-induced haste meant a different member of my staff cried on my shoulder every single day I was in surgery for over 5 months. That inflexibility of an IT provider caused 3 of my long-serving staff to resign. It was tragic. And this nonsense should not be happening when the NHS is such a massive purchaser of IT services. Why are we not dictating to the IT providers what we want and need? Why are we beholden to them, not the other way around? We need technology that works for patients, makes our lives easier, and so the NHS needs to take control. In the past few years, we've seen an exponential rise in the online providers of GP services. Some use symptom checkers or algorithms with Skype-type consulting as their main mode of delivery. CQC currently has 35 on the books in England, and after a rocky start, for many, the standards are definitely improving. Most of them are private providers who are filling a niche in the market for people who don't want to pay for full private general practice, but who are frustrated that traditional NHS general practice is just not fitting into their way of life. And they are prepared to pay a modest sum for the convenience of a GP in their pocket. However, in the past year, a new NHS provider of online services, GP at Hand, has emerged, underpinned by the technology and financial backing of one of those large private providers. And as those of you from London know all too well, they're expanding rapidly. We hear they have already signed up over 32,000 patients. Now that's largely people who live and work in central London, who've registered with them and thus deregistered from their original GP surgeries. GP at Hand are already actively seeking to expand their NHS offering into other major cities using London as a hub, with outreach sites elsewhere. And hundreds of excellent GPs are providing the clinical sessions for them, because they are, by all accounts, great employees. They pay well, and they value their employees. The rest of the NHS needs to take note, to watch and learn and up its game. Now, I've been publicly criticised this year for suggesting that their technology is impressive. Well, spoiler alert, it is quite impressive, but we're still awaiting assurance that it's safe. And for that, we need robust, independent evaluation. It's also intensely frustrating to traditional general practice, as they seem to have found a way through the GP contract and regulatory frameworks to set up something completely different for the NHS, something that challenges the ethical compact, whereby the funding for fit and well people helps pay for the sick and the needy. And so the whole financial model of traditional general practice is under threat. It truly is disruptive innovation. And I believe this is our wake-up call, our shake-up call. And if we bury our heads in the sand, we are the fools. And many patients are choosing rapid access to new tech-enabled GPs over traditional consulting, giving up the trusted long-term relationship with their family doctor in the process. But of course, not every patient is encouraged to join. And all this risks widening health inequalities even further as the younger and fitter are siphoned off. Here in Glasgow, we are at the home of the Deep End Initiative. They really understand health inequalities, and so should we all as GPs. This year, we said farewell to Dr. Julian Tudor-Hart. If you don't know who I'm speaking of, please read his last ever interview in GP Frontline. He was a special man, a Londoner who settled in the Welsh Valleys as a GP, a man of vision, of passion, and strongly held political views. His writing was inspirational. His meticulous approach to care and his note-keeping was amazing, and he gave us the Inverse Care Law, published in The Lancet in 1971. And that says that the availability of good medical care tends to vary inversely with the need for it in the population served. And this Inverse Care Law operates more completely where medical care is most exposed to market forces. I believe that with the right use of technology in the future NHS, we can actually aim to reduce health inequalities and counteract some of the adverse social determinants of health. But right now, those with the latest smartphone, those who speak English and live in cities, those who have high-speed broadband, are being offered something that others are not. We're currently seeing a widening of health inequalities, widening the digital divide experienced by rural communities, and the opportunity cost of all this is mounting. We need our NHS to remain free at the point of need, to provide access for all, opportunity for all. I don't want to be a GP just for a few people. I want to be a GP for all people. With companies like Google and Apple leading the way and showing us what good can look like, then with enough resource, the rest of the NHS could look pretty impressive too. This technology is not unique. It's not out with the grasp of the NHS. We could have genuine AI, not just fancy algorithms and Bayesian reasoners. With a new Secretary of State in England committed to improving technology throughout the NHS, we've got a window of opportunity to turn this around. And so I call upon the 4 governments of the UK, make the NHS the market leader for medical technology so we can deliver safe, effective, high-quality care for everyone. I also call upon the government to commit to having e-consultation facilities in every practice by 2022, and that every single practice across the UK has high-speed broadband capability. We need technology that works for patients, makes our lives easier, and is not lining the pockets of private investors at the expense of the NHS. But there is another reality. Robots don't come cheap. Tech costs money. And for GP practices that are already on the brink, implementing good, new, safe technology is simply not feasible. Most of us aren't being propped up by wealthy venture capitalists, after all. GPs on the front line just can't afford the investment in technology. Our latest college research shows that of GPs who think that running a practice is no longer financially viable, almost a quarter tell us that technology costs are one of the reasons why. And that proportion has doubled in the last 18 months. So give us the IT tools we need in a way that doesn't put existing services at risk, in a way that benefits all patients and makes our working lives easier. The Prime Minister earlier this year announced over 20 billion extra a year in real terms for the NHS by 2023. That money should be used to ensure a 21st century NHS with 21st century general practice. And that's why we're calling for an extra 2.5 billion extra a year in real terms for our profession in England, on top of what's been promised through the GP Forward View. That's a total of 14.5 billion a year by 2021, bringing the share of the NH budget general practice receives back up to 11%. That's what it was in 2005. And we need proportionate increases here in Scotland and in Wales and in Northern Ireland. And I want to talk about the evidence side of things. Now, I challenge every doctor here that we all have an academic background. Medical school teaches us the scientific method, to question, to seek out evidence and be evidence-based practitioners throughout our professional lives. I mentioned a tech tsunami. That's a destructive force of nature, a tidal wave. Well, it's actually a seismic sea wave, and there's nothing to do with tides about it whatsoever, however. But it is caused by the displacement of a large body of water. And in a tech tsunami, harm is done by flooding the ground with too much technology. Some good, of course, but some bad technology. Our college motto, compassion underpinned by scientific knowledge. So we need rapid, independent scientific evaluation of innovation, of new online consulting options, of software, apps, and wearables, so that we can swiftly, safely, and effectively establish which is the good new technology. Mary Dixon Woods talks about the lovely baby concept. Now, if you're unfamiliar with it, it goes like this. Everyone believes that their own child or grandchild is beautiful, special, wonderful, and we invest in them emotionally. Our ideas and innovations are our children, and thus we all have lovely children. It takes an outsider to be objective and say, ooh, that really is an ugly baby. That really is not a safe innovation. That idea is widening health inequalities, and that idea has superficial appeal, but doesn't bear scrutiny. So beware of our lovely babies. We must seek out independent, evidence-based appraisal. I've been shocked by the response by some of the companies whose reaction to constructive professional challenge is to descend into bully boy tactics, to send legal letters instead of engaging professionally. We know many instances of bad technology, errors and bugs in our own GP computer systems. They've hit the headlines repeatedly over the past few years. And Capita, let's not go there. And of course, social media regularly demonstrates to us overdiagnosis and over-medicalization and reliance on algorithm-based symptom checkers. Did you hear about the one about the viral cough that was diagnosed as multiple sclerosis last week? Let's get the basics of NHS IT right before we spend millions on fancy tech. Actually, first of all, I'd really like a computer that takes less than 10 minutes to log on, the ability to Skype without it cutting out every 2 minutes, and just one login process instead of 7, it would be a start. But let's not be disheartened. There is a huge amount of great tech out there. We all have access to consistently high-quality online multimedia CPD. Digital interpretation of imaging is really taking off. And what about using QR pods to share information and keep it updated efficiently? And do search our Bright Ideas portal for great, safe ideas. And have you looked at NHS Digital's app library recently? It's fab. Many of you will already be familiar with Couch to 5K and Active 10. There's Public Health England endorsed activity apps. But what about Brush DJ? 2 minutes of music to brush your teeth to. Or my personal favourite, Chill Panda. Let's relax and be more zen like our furry bamboo munching friends. And they're free, independently evaluated, and they're fun. And we need a lot more of that in our lives. In my introduction, I mentioned the 70th anniversary of our NHS. Note the possessive, our NHS. But additionally, this year we've celebrated 100 years of the first women in the UK getting the vote, 400 years of the Worshipful Society of Apothecaries, from whom GPs evolved and who have supported our college on its journey. And of course, the 50th anniversary of our college examination. Our RCGP examination has developed and improved into a world-leading assessment it is today. So happy birthday, NHS, and happy birthday, RCGP. But now, what about the future of general practice? I want GPs to be the architects of our own future, not the passive recipients of the vision of others. And that is why over the past few months we've been consulting with you. And if you haven't yet fed in, there's still a chance to do so. I need your input, and conference is a great time to do that. A time to clear your head, see further, and be creative about the possible. So please do visit the RCGP stand in the main hall during the breaks for the opportunities to feed in. And there are already some really consistent messages emerging. We've had 1,400 responses already from GPs, patients, and members of the practice team. Those themes? Continuity of care. Yeah, it's not an outdated anachronism. Providing continuity of care is valued by GPs and their patients, and it works. Barbara Starfield told us that decades ago. Dennis Pereira-Gray and colleagues from Exeter published further confirmation just weeks ago. But also widening the primary healthcare team. We need to redouble our efforts to recruit to the profession and retain our GPs. But we also need to train up other healthcare professionals who have the capacity and the skills to work with us. We need to offer greater flexibility in the ways that we deliver care. Politicians and patients tell us loudly and clearly they want us to be more flexible in when, where, and how we offer appointments. But actually, our newer colleagues are telling us they want to work differently for the benefit of their health and well-being. And of course, back to technology. We need technology that works for all patients, makes our lives easier, and is not lining the pockets of private investors at the expense of the NHS. And so that's a taster of the vision. I know we'll inevitably upset some groups if we're bold, but the future will happen with or without us. And so my message is we have to be architects of our own future. We need to work with and learn from the tech tsunami so that we can tame it by insisting on only embracing safe, evidence-based initiatives. We need to assert our desire to deliver Enid-shaped care to all who need it. We need to be flexible enough to look at our own entrenched, lovely babies and subject them to scrutiny. And where others demonstrate there's a better way, we need to give it a go. We need to share, to mentor, to support one another and not retreat into our own caves. And to do all this, we need general practice to be valued, invested in and trusted. I call upon our political leaders to give us the tools we need, give us a chance to tame the tech tsunami in a way that doesn't put existing services at risk, in a way that benefits all our patients and makes our working lives easier. Give us the extra investment we need. Bring our share of the NHS budget back up to 11% right across the UK. I want to be able to deliver great care to all my patients. I want my surgery to deliver excellent care to our community. And I want our NHS to value general practice and nurture and care for general practitioners and recognise the amazing work we do so that in 70 years' time, the NHS will be thriving and not just surviving. Thank you.